Well, we're 3-1 for the first time since 2011, which was our Super Bowl year. The Giants are going to make the Super Bowl. Oh, let me stop. Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast. Be sure to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or a video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. This might be an hour show today. This might be an hour worth, or I should say long show today, because the Giants won. There's some stuff to go over and bumps and bruises. So we're going to talk about a lot of different scenarios leading into next week. There's going to be scenarios covered on Friday. Well, actually Saturday, but Friday is the day I record. Sometimes Saturday mornings. But yeah, the Giants are 3-1. And they're tied for first in the division with the Cowboys and the Eagles, with the little bummy Washington Commandos at fourth place. That's a fucking good feeling to have. Whether something happens, whatever, 3-1, over 500, if you're a Giants fan, well, guess what? You got to be happy. You have to be happy, and if you're not, well, sorry for you. Sucks for you. But as we usually do on this show, we're going to go over first thoughts, stats, the ground and pound, the defense holding the Bears, injuries galore, what happens at QB, where am I on Kadarius Toney, stock up, stock down, and closing thoughts. So let's go to first thoughts. SAQUON Barkley's back, man. I'm ready to say that. I know a few podcasts ago I was like, well, I mean, he had a good game, but let me wait a few games and see if he's actually back. No, he's fucking back, all right. He is back. And, you know, if you look at statistically, I think the performance was actually better than statistics will show you. We'll go over that, obviously. But something I'll take right now out of the statistics. 31 carries, 146 yards, 4.7 yards per carry. A lot of the stuff at the end, like carries he got, that was out of the Wildcat A. B, he was, handing off from an injured Daniel Jones. So that lowered the yards per carry. But overall, the Giants had a good rushing game. Daniel Jones included before he got hurt. I just loved the game plan from the New York Giants. And now, if Daniel Jones doesn't get hurt, maybe the Giants do end up scoring like 21, 25 points on top of the Bears. Maybe some other things happen. But injuries are injuries, and, stuff plays out like stuff plays out, unfortunately. As for the defensive side of the ball, other than some few things, I can't say that they did a bad job. I really can't, because the defense got 5 sacks. Aziz got his first sack. Dexter Lawrence, I mean, he's been the best player on the defense this year. Jalen Smith made an impact. There's a lot of different things we're going to go over there, but 3-1 feels fucking good. And, let's get right into it. So the stats-wise, before I go in there, I'm going to take a sip, because I need and I love water. Justin Fields had a completion percentage of 50, which 11 for 22, 174 yards. 5 sacks taken. I had a QBR of 35.1 and a rating of 76.7. Daniel Jones, only 13 pass attempts, 8 for 13. Now, some of them could have been running attempts as well. Like, the pocket is good. The receivers aren't necessarily getting separation, so he's got to move. But there weren't too many situations like that. But Jones, 8 for 13, 71 yards, 1 sack, which was where he got hurt, 92.3 QBR, 76.1 rating. And then Tyrod Taylor, 1 for 3, 11 yards, 1 interception, 2.1 QBR, 5.6 rating. The rushing game for the Bears. Now, if you take a look at it, it's like, the Giants gave up 150 against the run. But Khalil Herbert, man, a lot of people are saying, you got to smash the over for the 75 rushing yards. He's gonna get 100. No, the Giants stopped him at 77. And he only got 4.1 yards per carry. So that's good run defense right there. I'm not overstating the case. Treston Ebner, 6 carries, 20 yards, and then Justin Fields, 7 carries, 52 yards. Not really much design runs, but him just escaping the pocket. I think the Giants need to contain the QB a little bit better, but, I don't think they're going to have a problem with that this week coming up, because Aaron Rodgers is the QB. He's not mobile. Take a look at the rushing game for the Giants. I already kind of explained one part of it. 31 carries, 146 yards, 4.7 yards per carry for Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones, 6 carries, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was a big part of it, 11.3 yards per carry. Tyrod Taylor, 3 rushes, 30 yards, 10 per carry. Obviously, the big one was a 13-yard one that he fumbled on and got concussed. And to be honest with you, I respect the hell out of, just getting the first down. But at the same time, and I know people can say, oh, you're a Daniel Jones homer or whatever. I don't care. That's not really the right move to make when you only have one active quarterback. And that active quarterback is hurt, so you're the quarterback. And you can't put yourself in an injury type situation. If it was a sack, okay, then we could talk about other things. But it wasn't a sack. He leaned in head first to the defender, and there was no flag because you've become a runner at that point. Tyrod Taylor got hurt, so we ended up having Saquon Barkley for the rest of the game at quarterback, kind of. And then Matt Breida, 3 carries, 18 yards, and Brightwell had a carry for 1 yard. So receiving game-wise, Darnell Mooney was the lead receiver, 4 receptions, 94 yards. He probably had his best game of the season, I think. Based on this game, even though the Bears have been mostly, their focal point is the rushing attack. So 4 receptions, 94 yards, mostly on Adoree Jackson, who didn't have the greatest day. Obviously, it's part of him being that number 1 corner. Then New York receiving, Daniel Bellinger, 3 receptions, 23 yards. I mean, he's been what you honestly should have expected, or maybe even more than you expected, because he's been that safety net, and I literally talked about it in my preview show. I don't toot my own horn that much, but hey, I said, a key to this game and what you're looking for is Daniel Bellinger to be that safety net. These receivers suck. I'm sorry. These receivers fucking suck. Galladay, he can't get on the field now. He's injured. Darius Slayton, I like to think that he's the number 1, but he drops passes, and I know a lot of people are questioning the effort on that one, the interception that Tyrod Taylor threw. I wasn't happy about that either, because you got to lean more towards the sideline if you're throwing into the double coverage. It wasn't really a free play either. David Sills sucks. He dropped the pass. Richie James, I mean, he's okay. He's been the lead receiver. He also fumbled a punt, so I'm not happy about that. The tight ends have been better. The tight ends have been straight up better, and the running backs as well. Tanner Hudson, I know he had a drop, but I don't have much to complain about the tight end room. I think, some guys will be here next year, some guys won't be, but it's something to build on, definitely. Now, you look at the fumbles, there's a lot of them. Velus Jones, obviously, the fumble on that one punt, basically gave the Giants the ball game. Justin Fields, he fumbled. That was the Aziz forced fumble. A couple of them listed on here from the lateral, so it's not like it's big. Richie James fumbled and lost it. Obviously, that was the one punt. Tyrod Taylor fumbled, and he didn't lose it, but he got concussed. Thibodeau recovered the fumble from Justin Fields. Dane Belton recovered the fumble from the lateral, and Gary Brightwell recovered the fumble on special teams when Velus Jones fumbled it. So, fumble's been used a lot in the last few minutes. Matchup-wise and team stats. First downs, the Giants had 21 and the Bears had 16. Passing first downs, the Giants had 5 and the Bears had 6. Giants had 14 rushing first downs, the Bears had 7. First downs from penalties, the Giants had 2. The Bears had 3. Third down efficiency. The stuff that and the situations that the Bears converted on was mostly third and long, which I think the Giants need to adjust better to. And listen, it's a small critique. The defense ended up winning the game for us along with Graham Gano and the rushing attack and all these different things. But there are some plays where tackling needs to happen. And some plays, especially one on a 3rd and 20, I think it was, or a 3rd and 12, where they set up a screen for Komet or one of the other guys, and he just got for a first down. They were way too aggressive. So, listen, I respect Wink Martindale. He's done a hell of a job in terms of this defense, but sometimes you can't be too aggressive. Like rushing 4 or 5 on 3rd down and long, I get it. But if you're going to throw the blitz, just make sure you have sure tacklers in the secondary. And obviously, they move towards the first down. But I can't complain at the same time because, well, we didn't allow a touchdown. So, and then for the Giants, 6 for 14 on third down, which isn't bad. Nobody went for it on fourth. Giants had 61 plays. The Bears had 60. Giants had 333 total yards, 304 for the Bears. 11 total drives for the Giants, 12 for the Bears. Yards per play, Giants had 5.5, the Bears had 5.1. Red zone attempts, well, the Chicago Bears were 0 for 3, and the Giants were 1 for 2. Penalties, the Bears had 5 penalties for 65 yards, and Giants had 7 penalties for 55 yards. Turnovers, the Bears had 3, and 2 for the Giants. Really 2 for the Bears because what are you going to count, a lateral as a turnover? Time possession was knit tight, about a 2-minute difference, 31-17 for the Giants and 28-43 for the one, the only Chicago Bears. And then you look at defensive leaders, not much for the Bears defense, only 3 tackles for a loss, 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits. Jaquan Brisker, 5 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. Obviously, that's going on Daniel Jones. Eddie Jackson had 8 tackles in the interception on Tyrod Taylor. Justin Jones had 6 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. Then Robert Quinn had a tackle and a quarterback hit, but he was basically stonewalled by Andrew Thomas. So Andrew Thomas, best offensive tackle in the league, really left tackle. But left tackle is the hardest position. It's not so much right tackle. 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, and 9 quarterback hits from the Giants defense. And this guy has been getting praise from Giants fans, and a lot of people really haven't recognized him because he hasn't been on the stat sheet. Now he is. Not just the film room, but the stat sheet. That's Dexter Lawrence. 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, and 3 quarterback hits. He's been phenomenal this year. He has to be one of the top defensive linemen. And this isn't saying, oh, well, he just had 1 game and, I'm overhyping, whatever. No, he's finally coming out of his shell. I know a few seasons ago he had 2.5 sacks, then he had 4.5 sacks. I mean, he could have maybe a 6-sack season if we're looking in the long scheme of things. But he's been phenomenal. Running game, he was bullying Lucas Patrick in the right guard. I forget who the right guard is. I think it was Tevin Jenkins a little bit, but I know it's hard to bully Tevin Jenkins, but he hasn't necessarily been good in pass pro. But Dexter Lawrence has had a heck of a year. So Dexter Lawrence, shout-outs to you, man. I'm going to call out somebody later. This is not a bad call-out. This is a good call-out, actually, because there's a guy, and we're not going to see the stats until Wednesday, at least I think so. We got to talk about somebody that's really been underappreciated on this defense. Tay Crowder had 11 tackles, 1 sack, a tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. He was all over the field. He was really good against the Bears. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he had an interception that was garbage time last year against them, but he really showed out. And, he needed this game because the last few games, he's been hit or miss. He's been either really good or he's just been not so great. But this game, he showed out. Now, is he the future at linebacker? Maybe, maybe not. Is he an inside linebacker 1? Of course not. But you got to commend him. One guy also got on the stat sheet today. That's Jihad Ward. Another guy also got on the stat sheet. And many people in the Giants community have seen it, but otherwise, nobody's seen it. Jihad Ward, 4 tackles, 1st sack of the game, a tackle for a loss, and 2 quarterback hits. He set the edge well, and he's a decent pass rusher. Now, you're not going to get a sack every game from him, but this might be his best season this far. I think Joe Davis and Daryl Johnston brought up that he's already over his halfway career, statistic high in tackles. So I think they said his career high was 32, and he has over 16 this season. So, shouts to Jihad Ward, man. We finally have a guy in this Giants defense that's a veteran that knows the scheme, and he actually plays well. Not Kareem Martin, not some of these other cats. Not Danny Shelton either. Dane Belton, 4 tackles and a tackle for a loss. He had a key tackle for a loss in the running game. He also had a fumble recovery on the lateral. He's been solid for us. Kayvon Thibodeau recovered the fumble. O'Shane Zimenez, quarterback hit. Kayvon had a quarterback hit. He also had that stupid penalty. I mean, listen, roughing the passer has been a sketchy topic, but at the same time, you can't go leaning with your head. If you push him to the ground softly and they call it a flag, I'll be like, that's fucking stupid. But he's got to be a little bit smarter. He's a rookie. I'm not going to attack him too much. And then Azeez Ojulari, a forced fumble, a sack, and 2 tackles. PFF has him really bad in terms of grades. I don't know why. But who knows? Who knows? I'm going to straighten myself out here. And we're going to go into offense and defensive takeaways before we get to injuries and all that other stuff. Daniel Jones and SAQUON Barkley lead the rushing attack, and SAQUON also in the Wildcat towards the end of the game. I mean, the rushing game was unstoppable. The Giants haven't had this many yards since 2008 with Derek Ward and Brandon Jacobs, I believe it was. So that's a milestone for the Giants, especially in the last few years. SAQUON obviously leading that rushing attack. But they just took advantage of these rollouts. Not them being totally bad against the run. I mean, they were bad against the run, but they started stopping it towards the end of the game because that was pretty obvious that's what they were running with Daniel Jones being out. But the 2 touchdowns, those were rollouts that Daniel Jones just saw the field going down for a touchdown. I don't think those were even designed. And then there was a play on one of those touchdown drives where Daniel Jones play action, and he's not running. I mean, he's running in the pocket with it. But everybody's just soaked to the left side with SAQUON Barkley because they respect him. And then he throws it to a wide-open Bellinger. And I think if Eddie Jackson isn't there, that's a touchdown. That's just a walk-in touchdown for Daniel Bellinger. So Mike Kafka, Brian Dable, the execution obviously towards the end was very faulty with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback and then Daniel Jones on one leg. So good offensive game plan. I don't say that a lot for teams that, okay, they're just rushing teams. And that's what the Giants seem to be right now. They seem to be just a coordinated run-first team, and I'm buying into it. Tyrod Taylor comes in for Daniel Jones, gets concussed after he throws the interception. It was just, why? Like, those 2 plays, why? And I understand, look, Tyrod Taylor had a few good plays, had a great spin move. He had a great read option to the right side that got a first down. And then he also had the short throw to, I believe it was Darius Slayton, who had the first catch of the season. But throwing the interception, there's not really a reason for that. I think he thought he had a free play, and he didn't. It was a holding penalty on Devery Hamilton. And then he gets concussed by putting himself out there. And we talk about Daniel Jones all the time. Dude, you got to slide. Dude, you got to put yourself in better position so you don't get knocked. If it was a sack and Tyrod Taylor was taken out of the game because, maybe someone got him into the head or into the chest area, I would say, okay, then the player's dirty, this, that, and the other thing. But Tyrod Taylor was a runner, and he put his head first. That's something you cannot do when you only have yourself as quarterback. Davis Webb is not even on the active roster, and then Daniel Jones is hurt. So not really smart stuff from Tyrod Taylor. Hopefully he's okay. I think he will play against the Ravens, even though we'll talk about stuff at quarterback later on. Darius Slayton with 2 key misplays. Really one for me, I don't really, to be honest with you, consider that misplay to be an that interception to be a misplay of his. Maybe he should have defended a little bit more, but I just saw it as a bad throw, a bad decision by Tyrod Taylor, because if you're throwing into double coverage, at least the way it's looking like that, throw more to the sideline so you live another down, or Darius Slayton makes a catch. Now, you can consider that. I also consider the fact that, yes, there was pass interference on one play, but Slayton should have caught that. Now, could have been a little bit more in front of, Darius Slayton. Could the throw have been a little bit more in front? Sure. Did it play a factor that Kyler Gordon was literally pulling his arm down? Yes, but I feel like those could have been 2 key plays that Darius Slayton, could have gotten. But hey, listen, we'll see what happens with him. The wide receiver room is still pretty terrible. We got to see who steps up next week. I mean, that's just pretty much that. We're going to have a section about Kadarius Toney by itself. Wan'Dale Robinson's coming back. So we'll see, man. We'll see. O-line does better run and pass blocking wise. I mean, they've only attempted it so many times with the passing downs. Those 2 runs were not runs. They were Daniel Jones rolling out, wide open space for a bootleg and a touchdown. So they definitely did better with the run blocking. But pass blocking wise, I mean, it was 13 pass attempts. He got sacked on 1. So I can't necessarily, blame the O-line. At the same time, we have to see them in about double the passing attempts before we say, okay, this line has made progress. Evan Neal didn't let anybody go by him, which is a good thing. I thought Bredesen, I thought the interior also had a step-up game. But once again, we got to see them next week against the Packers because they got Kenny Clark. They got Preston Smith. Zadarius Smith went to the Vikings. And Rashawn Gary, too. I mean, those are some guys you need to fear. Defensively, Dexter Lawrence had a game. We talked about that. He is finally getting some recognition he deserves on the stat sheet and in the film room. He's going to get it because, teams aren't double teaming him. When that happens, he gets in the backfield. And then when teams double team him, he lets free rushers go into the backfield, which is a good thing. And this is a contract year for Dexter Lawrence, kind of. They could extend him early because they have a ton of cap space next year. He does have the option, so he's going to be a Giant next year no matter what, unless he gets traded, which I don't think is going to happen. But Wink loves him. It's great to see Dexter Lawrence really step up for this team. And, we were doubting, okay, is he going to be a part of this team? Is he not going to be a part of this team in the future? I think he's going to be a part of this team in the future. And when Leo comes back, I think he'll be back probably against the Packers. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't to get back against the Packers. And if that's the case, if he's not back, he'll be back against the Ravens, a heavy running team. So, he'll be needed then. But glad to see that Dex is doing his thing, man. Jihad Ward sets the edge multiple times, records his first sack on the season. Great for him. Azeez Ojulari records his first. Why am I saying records? Records his first sack and forced fumble on the season and cave on with a quarterback hit. Jalen Smith and Tay Crowder with great plays from the inside. Jalen Smith, he looks like a bumblebee to me. There are certain players that have that, I don't want to say dread because I don't think it's the right word to use, but Derrick Henry has that look and Jalen Smith has that look. He looks like a bumblebee trying to sting you. But Jalen Smith, on a serious note, he's looked really good. And I was surprised when the New York Giants didn't elect to re-sign him. When they didn't re-sign him in the offseason, I was like, what are we doing here? This guy could kind of help us. So, great from him. Dory Jackson tested more by Darnell Mooney. He gave up, I don't think it was all 94 receiving yards, but he had trouble against Mooney. Giants vulnerable on 3rd and longs. That's definite. They're vulnerable on 3rd and longs. I've seen that the last few games. The 3rd and 12 against Dallas. So that's something they need to work on. But they are one of the best, I think second best in 3rd down percentage defensively. So I can't complain about that. But sometimes you have to be aggressive. Sometimes it's not right to be aggressive. But can't complain too much. I'm going to talk about the defensive player that I was alluding to earlier, about how he's so underappreciated, at least over the last 3 weeks. And then I'm going to talk about, some other things, but I want to get this through. Giants with 1 turnover forced. Actually, now that I think of it, 2 of them. And then 1 turnover lost on special teams. So it was, if you're talking in real time and not garbage time, it was an even keel in terms of turnover ratio. Because the Richie James fumble, the Tyrod Taylor interception, and then you look at the Bears, well, Justin Fields fumbled and Giants recovered, and then Velus Jones's muff punt. Who am I talking about when I say they are very underappreciated? I'll talk about that in a second. That defensive player I'm alluding to is Fabian Moreau. I think he's been, now, he's not a Pro Bowler, but for a team that has been in and out with cornerback 2, he has been a godsend in a way. Now, I'm the only one talking about this, at least for right now. I think he's played really well. He's locked down that side of the field. There was a key 3rd down where Justin Fields went to his receiver and Fabian Moreau, maybe he should have turned his head a little bit more, but hey, he knocked it out of the hands of the receiver. There was a play down the right sideline where Dante Pettis was about to catch the ball. Fabian Moreau knocks it down. I mean, he's played really well. And this was a guy who gave up 8 fucking touchdowns last year with the Atlanta Falcons, and that was a bad team. They're 2-2 right now, but that was a bad team last year, and he was trying to rebound and stuff like that. I think they should keep him on the roster, even if Aaron Robinson and Cordell Flott are healthy. I think he should be in the mix. Now, let's see how old he is. Let's see how old our buddy Fabian Moreau is. He is about 28, so, I mean, he's not that young, but he's not that old. Keep him on. We've been talking about a veteran corner besides Adoree Jackson for a while. We don't know where the fuck Rodarius Williams is, as, you know, I like him, but at the same time, you're not on the field, so you're not on the team. But Fabian Moreau, he's been a godsend at that second corner position. It's not Isaac Yiadom, where he's giving him all these fucking touchdowns. It's not Ryan Lewis. It's not Elijah Griffin. But shout-outs to Fabian Moreau. He's really had a nice set of few weeks with the New York Giants and continue to play that way. I love waxing poetic about this guy. So, oh boy, now we get into the injuries. Injuries galore, as I name it. Let's go into injuries. Daniel Jones, ankle injury. Tyrod Taylor, concussion. Kenny Golladay, knee injury. Evan Neal, neck injury. Kayvon Thibodeau, back spasm. Henry Mondo, ankle. Azeez Ojulari, calf. Julian Love, concussion. Aaron Robinson, knee. Leonard Williams, knee. Kadarius Toney, hamstring. Wan'Dale Robinson, knee. And Cordell Flott, calf. Also, Nick McLeod, I believe he also has a concussion or some sort of issue. But I was basically listing the main guys. But that's a shit ton of injuries, and especially off this game. Like, we've seen some bad injury spouts, but it's weird. The New York Giants fan base likes to be selective about what they talk about. I'm really buying into the fact that it's the turf causing these issues. Because, obviously we lost Sterling Shepard on Monday night, and we saw a few injuries against the Panthers, Leonard Williams being one. But let's see. Let's count the injuries we had off of this game alone. The head and impact. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 injuries. 9 injuries. And these are not scraps. Like, maybe Henry Mondo is a scrap. But these are key players. So, in the future, after this year, if John Mara wants to actually have a successful team that grows over the years, get rid of the fucking turf. Get rid of the stadium. I mean, I know that's never going to happen because you'll have the Johnsons don't want to do this, or, the Maras don't want to do this. That's one thing. And then it's going to be the people from Jersey that don't want to commute to New York or even move the stadium. And I'm not talking as in, the people who I talk to on Twitter. I'm just talking like the general old population or whatever. There will be New Jersey people, let's just say, in a miracle situation that we never, or I should say not we never, but let's just say a situation where we go back to New York, we go into Manhattan, or we build a stadium in Queens, Brooklyn, whatever. Those Jersey people, I don't know that they'd commute. But there's definitely a lot of New Yorkers that would love for the team to come back. Back to the point originally, that's a ton of injuries to have in one game. That's not very good. Obviously, we're expecting Williams, Toney, Robinson back. We'll see. I know Julian Love has a concussion injury. He says he's fine. Obviously, he's in the protocol. Tyrod Taylor's in the protocol. Daniel Jones we'll talk about in just a sec. Kenny Golladay, fucking knee injury, man. He's not on the field. This ain't a surprise to me. Evan Neal, neck injury. I mean, I think he'll be fine. Kayvon Thibodeau, they said he'll be fine. Henry Mondo, I think something seriously happened with that ankle. I think he actually might be done for the year, but I'm not a Twitter doctor. Aaron Robinson, not looking good with a knee injury. And then Azeez Ojulari, they said they'll see through the week. I don't want Kayvon Thibodeau being the only pass rusher on the field. We'll see what happens. So, one of the questions that faces us as we get through the week is, what do the Giants do at quarterback? In my opinion, Daniel Jones, as much as we want him on the field and he gives us a chance to win, and whether you like it or not, he does, he shouldn't play these next 2 weeks. However long he needs to rest him. Because here's what you can do. You may only have Davis Webb as your quarterback for 1 week. I don't think concussions take 2 weeks unless you're the Miami Dolphins. But Tyrod Taylor could play against his former team in the Ravens in week 6, I think. Yeah, week 6. So now the game plans are going to be different, all these different things. But for this week at least, they'll need to sign another quarterback, maybe even another, because this is the thing with some of these NFL teams keeping only 2 quarterbacks. I know a lot of people said, oh, they're going to keep Davis Webb. They didn't keep Davis Webb. That's the thing. You have the 7 inactive rule, which either way you'd have 2 active quarterbacks and 1 inactive. But then you have these teams like the Giants keeping Davis Webb and their backup quarterbacks on the practice squad. So that's kind of where it gets you. But Davis Webb, I think he's going to start this week. I never thought I would say that, but Tyrod Taylor, I think he's going to be in concussion protocol. Daniel Jones, they said he has an ankle sprain. They really didn't specify what the sprain was. Was it a low ankle sprain, high ankle sprain? He missed time with an ankle sprain, I believe it was 2019, and he ended up being out for 2 weeks. You know what? Rest him, and then he gets to play a good team in Jacksonville. And that's a winnable game. Listen, I'm not saying some of these games aren't winnable, but we have 2 legitimate challenges. I'm not saying pussy out, but if we lose these 2 games, respectfully, that puts us at 3-3. Then you could possibly win against Jacksonville, and that's 4-3 maybe. Could also be 3-4, and then Seattle, which they look weirdly competent, kind of. Not for the long term, maybe. But that's another beatable team out in the West. And then you go on your bye week, you face the Texans, who don't have a win yet. So, once again, I think it's much more worth it sitting Daniel Jones these next 2 weeks. And then against more winnable organizations, you go ahead, you put him in and say, let's roll. Matt Barkley, I know, is a name that Giants fans have tossed around because he's on the Bills practice squad or was on the Bills practice squad. So I would like him, see what other backup quarterbacks are out there, get them up to speed. No Jake Fromm, no Kyle Lauletta, no Mike Lennon, please. I mean, the experience last year was horrible. Let's get some competent backup play. And I think we have a coaching staff now, at least that I can say with confidence, that can put a nice game plan around a backup quarterback like Davis Webb or Matt Barkley. Hence, if they come in or not. But I think Mike Lennon and Jake Fromm looked bad last year, not only because they were terrible with talent and talent in themselves, but I also thought that the coaching staff was not helping them. They were not putting them in positions to succeed. And I get, the talent. Spare me with that. We're a less talented team this year. Let's talk about a guy that Giant fans really don't want to talk too much about, but we have to talk about him, and he might be returning this week, so, we can see what happens. Kadarius Toney. I've kind of avoided this subject in terms of going on my shows and all that when I'm creating my little notes. I've avoided the subject of Kadarius Toney, and I'm trying to get into it a little bit more now because I think it's a focal point. I think it's very important. Kadarius Toney was involved the first 2 weeks in the offense. Whether you say, the end of rounds and this, that, and the other thing, I was pissed at the coaching staff for not involving him. These last 2 weeks, he's been out. And it's not like it's a serious injury. My hamstring. Listen, calves, hamstrings, those are not injuries that, can just show up once and go away. Hamstrings will come back and hurt you sometimes. Same thing with calf injuries. Kadarius Toney, the last 2 fucking years, has had these injuries that these are knick-knack paddywhack injuries. Hamstring, leg, foot. It's kind of getting ridiculous now. And I'm not rushing judgment on Kadarius Toney. He could be an excellent player for the New York Giants. He can. Now, obviously, I was very pissed and very vocal about how the Giants coaching staff didn't involve him in the first 2 weeks. But these last 2, Kadarius Toney has to show the fuck up on the field, or else he's not a part of this team. That's how I see it. Now, apparently people saw him jumping up and down last week against the Cowboys. I don't know what that story is. I'm not going to comment on it because I would have to see it myself. But Kadarius Toney needs to get on the field because he, regardless of how the coaching staff involves him, He is electric when he's on the field. And he can be the X factor this week against a team like the Green Bay Packers. I'm more scared about their defense than their offense, to be fair with you guys. But you can't talk about Kadarius Toney being the X factor if he's not healthy. So, Kadarius Toney, all I'm going to say is for this, I don't want to speak for the Giants coaching staff and general manager in the front office, but if you keep being sidelined, whether it's a serious injury or not, you're not going to be on the field next year. Because I think with the way this wide receiver group has performed, the way you look at them right now, it's bad. And I don't think a lot of these guys, except for Wan'Dale Robinson, are going to be here next year. I think it's just facts. Maybe Richie James as a punt returner, but that's about it. They'll bring in new guys. They'll bring in younger guys. They'll bring in more established guys. So that's my thoughts on Kadarius Toney. Few more subjects to go through. Stock up, stock down, and closing thoughts. Stock up, Daniel Jones, SAQUON Barkley, the offensive line, Azeez Ojulari, Jihad Ward, Dexter Lawrence, Tay Crowder, and Jalen Smith. I also have to bring up the snap counts, and this is going to answer a question of my own, which is a good thing because I've been picky with this guy the last few weeks. So let's take a look. Is he on the field? Okay. I can sort of justify. So I think I went through all my stock ups. Fabian Moreau goes on the list, by the way. So if I didn't go over the full list, it's Daniel Jones, SAQUON Barkley, O-line, Azeez Ojulari, Jihad Ward, Dexter Lawrence, Tay Crowder, Jalen Smith, Fabian Moreau. Darnay Holmes, even though he only played 48%, he wasn't affected. And I'm not saying the talent was great at wide receiver, but he was good in week 4. Now, obviously, he could have held and we maybe haven't seen it, but use this as a step up because even though the Green Bay Packers aren't necessarily totally talented at wide receiver, they're a little bit better than the Chicago Bears at wide receiver. It's going to be a different type of test. Now, defensively, before we go to snap counts and final thoughts, excuse me, not defensively. As we go to stock down, before we go to the snap counts, David Sills, Darius Slayton, Tyrod Taylor, and Richie James. Those are my players. Adoree Jackson, I'll also add that to the list. So snap counts, final thoughts. Let's talk about the offense first. Andrew Thomas, Ben Bredesen, John Feliciano, all played 100% of the snaps. SAQUON Barkley, 94%. Mark Lewinsky, 88% because of the injury. I forgot to add him to the list, so that's 10 injuries they sustained during the game, even though he came back in. 88% for Lewinsky, 82% for Daniel Jones, 72% for David Sills, 65% for Evan Neal because he's left with a neck, 63% for Chris Myrick, 60% for Daniel Bellinger, 60% for Darius Slayton, so that's a huge increase, obviously, with all these wide receivers getting injured, 57% for Tanner Hudson, 42% for Kenny Golladay, 35% for Devery Hamilton. Wide receiver Richie James, he got 32%. Tyrod Taylor, 18%. Matt Breida, 14%. Josh Azudu, who played left guard when Lewinsky went out, and Bredesen played right guard. Azudu played left guard, 12%. Gary Brightwell, 5%. And Marcus Johnson, 2%. Now, I do have a question to bring up as, it's a fun question. It's not something many Giant fans are thinking about, but move to the defense. Tay Crowder, Xavier McKinney, and Adoree Jackson, 100% of the snaps. Dexter Lawrence, 94. Fabian Moreau, 79. Dane Belton, 74. Kayvon Thibodeau, 74. Jihad Ward, 60. Nick Williams, who made a couple of nice plays, 56%. Justin Ellis, 53%. Jalen Smith, 50%. Darnay Holmes, 48%, along with Azeez Ojulari. 44% for Michael McFadden. 31% for Julian Love. 24% for Tamon Fox. 21% for O'Shane Ximines, 16% for Aaron Robinson, 15% for DJ Davidson, and 13% for Henry Mondeau. One question I'm going to throw out there is, it might be time's up for Austin Calitro in a Giants uniform. He hasn't played well over the last few weeks, and then he was inactive against the Bears. And the week before that, he allowed a pretty big run by over-pursuing somebody else's gap. So, Giants coaching staff probably wasn't happy with that. And obviously the consequences, it's being inactive. And now that Jalen Smith is going to be a part of the fray, I would, count my blessings if I was Austin Calitro. It's great, that he had a good preseason, but he really never should have been on this roster to begin with. And then my other question is, what happens to Devery Hamilton when Matt Peart comes back? Because I talked on the preview show about Nick Gates possibly getting off the PUP list, Shane Lemieux in a few weeks as well. What happens if Matt Peart comes back? Do the Giants go ahead and cut Devery Hamilton? Because he hasn't played bad, but he hasn't played outstanding either. He hasn't played good as well. So, Matt Peart off an ACL or Devery Hamilton right now? I don't know. Your choice, guys. Obviously, we have to wait that through. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or a video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. Peace out, guys. See you later. And stay cool. Let's go, Giants. We are 3-1.